get that clarified. All right. All right, it's Monday night. I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me. Pretty much just playing Soulherder these days on my stream. There's no longer a night during the week when I'm playing Merfolk. Just waiting for some new cards to be released for Merfolk. I'm just not that excited by, the current builds, plural, positioning relative to the metagame. It's not that Merfolk can't win. It's just that in my matches, I've just felt like, I don't know, like the gameplay is just somewhat uninspiring. Like, I don't know if I want to play blue-green and just be aggressive, but if I'm doing that, then I should probably just play some other slightly better aggressive deck in the format. But then mono-blue, it's like, do we want to play like 7Cs, or do we just want to play a lot of tempo bears? And there's lots and lots of options. And I've done well. I've even 5-0'd with different kinds of lists in the past couple months. But I don't know. As I said, I was just not super inspired by playing Merfolk right now, so it's just all about the Soulherder. That's what we're here to do this evening. I thought it would be fun to start tonight's stream with a replay of a match I played against Ponza a couple of days ago. It's pretty epic. It shows the versatility of the deck, the resiliency of the deck. So yeah, maybe I will just wait until there's at least one of you guys kicking around in here with me before I jump into the replay. Just make sure that some people are following along with me. One of the things I like doing best with these live replays is asking you guys what you think the play should be. And then, let's see how often we agree, how often we disagree, and actually the disagreements probably lend the most opportunity to learn from the situations. So the list is going to be the same, I believe, as it was last week. I can't remember if I was on my third Uro last week. It's possible that I did splurge for the third Uro this week. So that might be a change. Honestly, at this point, I can't really remember the card that the third Uro replaced. But very happy to have the third copy of Uro in. He's just been winning matches left and right. Such a house. And I feel like he's extra important in the build with the Monodorks because you have that potential to power Uro out on turn 2. You're going to get to play an extra land drop. You're going to gain life. You're going to get Uro in the graveyard ready to escape. So again, just super happy with the third copy of Uro in the deck. Sideboard, almost certainly the same. So let's go ahead and jump into that replay. Hey, DV Neil, super glad to see you this evening. So if I go to the game history, actually you can see since I've switched back from Ether Vial to this version with Monodorks, I've just been winning like crazy. Like my rating is above 1800, which is rare. I'd say that, if I play Magic Online all year, there's only going to be like a few pockets of time where the rating actually gets up above 1800 throughout the year. Maybe like a couple weeks at a time, a couple times throughout the year. It's just very difficult to maintain that kind of a record playing against such competitive decks all the time. If you look at the last few matches, I mean, this was the league from last Thursday when I guess I didn't do super well. The matchups ended up being sort of difficult. So I think it was, loss, win, loss. So like we ended up going 2-3. But then after that, since Thursday, I've just jumped into a few queues here and there whenever I have an opportunity. And only one loss in, I believe, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Only one loss in the last 11 queues. The last 9 in a row, I won. So all in all, just the deck feeling super strong. Uro feeling like, unbeatable in a lot of situations. So I believe that one I just clicked on there, I think that this should be the replay of the Ponza match. Now, this person had a pretty fancy avatar. I looked them up afterwards, and they do have a couple of like full pages of results on Magic Online. Pretty cool that they play a bunch of different decks. Like they have 5-0s and other results with, they had Jund and Demir inverter combo and just a whole bunch of random decks. So definitely a talented player. And it was as I said earlier, just kind of an epic match. So opponent won the die roll. I'm going to be on the draw, and I think I already mentioned that I'm playing here against Ponza. Now, I think this guy BSK Hercules didn't have any 5-0s. Actually, he might have had exactly one 5-0 with a Ponza build, but it was, I guess, maybe before the Gargaroth was printed, because this build was definitely rolling with Gargaroths. All right, so what do you guys think? Is this a keep or a mulligan? I'll wait. I know, I'm just playing around. This is definitely a keep. So again, opponent is on the play here. Let's see if it's actually showing me this. I believe they kept their 7. Looks like they did. All right, so Forest into Utopia Sprawl. Now, yeah. It's one of the better opening hands I've had ever. It's just beautiful. It's really, really good. So let's go to my draw step. First main. All right, so it's going to start early with the questions. What do we do? What do we play? It's really just a question of land drops here. But show me your Soulherder chops. Show me your modern chops. What are we doing? To those who are arriving late, to be clear, this is a replay of a really, really cool match that I played against Ponza a couple days ago. So what land am I playing? Now, there is a bit of a delay between me and you guys, so if you're responding to like a question that I'm asking, it might take a little while. The stream might actually not move super quickly, but in general, I'll just wait 10 seconds for an answer and then I'll continue. So, I open with Prismatic Vista. Not sure if any of you are responding, just because they can easily just slam Blood Moon next turn, and we want to obviously get a basic island out of the deck. Hey, Rodeo-san, welcome to the stream. So if you see Utopia Sprawl, that needs to immediately raise the alarm that Blood Moon is coming, right? So even if they don't have Blood Moon right away, definitely a good idea to play those fetches, crack those fetches, get your colors established with your basics. Another reason that playing fetches is good against Ponza is they can try to go like turn 2 pillage and just blow up your land. If you just have a fetch land out, they obviously can't pillage it because we can just sack it in response. So let's go ahead, see what the opponent had for turn 2. They do have their second land drop. They have an Arbor Elf. This is not the best sequencing. They'd rather open with the Arbor Elf and then play Utopia Sprawl on turn 2. That would be able to generate an extra 4 mana for something like a turn 2 Bloodbraid Elf. So as I mentioned, I'm going to crack the Prismatic Vista, go get an island, and we'll go to our first main. So I am flooding out a little bit. You guys want to let me know what land you play here, or should I just go ahead? I'll just wait a moment. So I see 2 different decks when I see Sprawl now. Heliod Company and Gruul. Yeah, there's a few different decks that play it. I think those are 2 of them. I'm not sure if I've seen like Niv Mizzet play Utopia Sprawl, or if they play Abundant Growth. Anyhow, continuing with the strategy outlined just a moment ago, I'm going to play this Misty Rainforest just to go get another basic. Unfortunately, I can't get a white basic, but we wouldn't be playing that now anyway. So Misty Rainforest, cracking it to get a forest. And I guess, we're going to play an Oracle here. If you play a land drop on your turn, you definitely want to lead with Oracle to give yourself a chance of hitting an extra land. We hit a second Ephemerate. It's a great card. But, we would really have loved to have hit a land there. Opponent gets Stomping Ground tapped. No bolt for the Coiling Oracle. Opponent untaps. Yeah, so Rodeo-san, I'm gonna ask you guys for your input on my plays here, because want to give you guys an opportunity to sort of share your thoughts on potential lines with me, and we can see if we agree or disagree. And also, it just gives you guys a chance to really just apply some critical thinking to the lines in Soulherder, which obviously require a lot of thought most of the time. So, what has the opponent got? All right, Pillage going for the basic island. It's not Blood Moon, just land destruction. All right, they have a land drop. They play an untapped Stomping Ground, untap the Utopia Sprawl, and what? Another Pillage. Okay. So obviously not the best for us there. So maybe we're gonna lose game one. So that was an amazing turn 3 by the opponent. I don't know that I've ever seen that out of Ponza before. Double land destruction on turn 3. It's obviously possible, since they play Utopia Sprawl. They can generate 4 mana with this 1 land, and then 2 more over here for 6 mana. So setting me way back. So, well, if I played Misty and Pass, but who's going to play Misty and Pass when I have 2 drops to play? That would have been kind of ridiculous, right? It's not like you can't say that playing Misty and passing would have been the right play. Although, to be fair, let's think about it, right? If I'm trying to play around Pillage, I could just hold up my instant speed Coatl. So that's definitely a line that I could have taken. But I don't think we play around double land destruction, right? I'm pretty sure that playing Coiling Oracle, attempting to get the ramp, is the right way to do things. I definitely appreciate the thought there, but I think every day I'm playing a land and I'm playing Coiling Oracle. And not just playing a land, but specifically the sequence that I did. Misty Rainforest, getting a basic out to play around Blood Moon and give myself the opportunity to ramp. So here, pretty clear, we're going to play a white land and hold up Ephemerate, right? So I guess the question is, should we attack? Should we not attack? What's the thought process here? Not going to wait too long. It's kind of a small decision. So for me, I feel like we might as well get in there, right? Not too much to lose. If the opponent wants to get in with the Arbor Elf, we could potentially catch it off guard by ephemerating the Coiling Oracle. However, I think that the Coiling Oracle revealed an Ephemerate, so the opponent should know that I have Ephemerate up. Yep, so we agree on that. Rodeo-san, feel free to contribute as well. So the opponent has Bloodbraid Elf, of course, cascading into Utopia Sprawl, so now they can make 6 mana with that land. Okay, Bloodbraid Elf is going to resolve. Opponent goes straight to combat. Attacks with both. All right, so now I did mention that we could block this Arbor Elf. Just double check with you guys. I'm definitely going to Ephemerate at some point, since the opponent attacking with Arbor Elf is not going to be spending any of their mana. They're just tapped out at this point. Actually, they have not played a land yet, right, this turn, so they could still play a land, follow it up. So I guess like Bolt is on the table, another Utopia Sprawl, that kind of thing. Do we want to Ephemerate and block? Just take the damage, Ephemerate later? Like, do we want to keep this Coiling Oracle around, maybe for like a Court of Calling? Thoughts? So DV Neil thinks block the Arbor Elf. Rodeo-san could have some opinion. I definitely Ephemerate here, and I definitely block the Arbor Elf. The opponent blew up my lands. We are trying to catch up with them, and this Arbor Elf is actually representing 3 mana every turn. So very, very easy choice to block here. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to catch this Ephemerate, but we are trying our best to just sort of claw our way back into this matchup. So, or this game, I should say. So, just using an Ephemerate here to trade with an Arbor Elf, even if we don't get the rebound, is still excellent. So block the Arbor Elf and take 3 from Bloodbraid Elf. Opponent doesn't have another land drop to make, so goes to my upkeep. Again, Ephemerate has no target, so it'll stay in exile. All right, so more options now. We drew a Monodork. Do we want to play the Monodork? What land do we want to play? Do we play a snake? What do you guys think? There's so many decisions. It's hard to say that one is absolutely better than another. And what's the rationale behind playing the snake? Obviously, then we would just be taking damage from the Blood Braid, right? Like no reason to chump the Blood Braid, I don't think. So playing Oracle gets a body on the battlefield, and that's always good. Gives us an opportunity to ramp. That was my logic on turn 2. However, in this spot, I think just getting out, trying to again claw our way back into the matchup, guaranteeing extra mana next turn to me seems like the best opportunity. Playing a Noble Hierarch on this turn, as long as it doesn't get bolted, but we would have Ephemerate up to protect our mana. Because Lightning Bolt on Noble Hierarch is effectively like another pillage. Next turn we could untap and play 2 snakes, which would be awesome. Or we could play Uro and Ephemerate him to gain a bunch of life. Well, it's mana inefficient, but it does let us leave up Ephemerate. Potentially, if they tap out before combat, gives us an opportunity to actually Ghost Block if we want to do that. But we're not at such a low life total that we'd want to waste an Ephemerate on Noble Hierarch. So many options. I guess I did choose to go with the snake here. It's interesting because sometimes I don't remember my exact line. So I went for the snake. I don't think I hit ramp here. All right. So Path to Exile, obviously a good card, but we didn't. Oh, you know what? I remember some of my thinking now that I didn't just mention is that next turn Uro gives us the opportunity to ramp. So next turn, at the least, we'd be able to play Uro and then Noble Hierarch. So let's just see how the opponent plays their turn. So no spells in the first main. Actually, I think I bluffed this block just like to maybe the opponent wants to waste a bolt. Yeah, just like it only spent 1 second. I didn't spend a lot of time, but no reason to block there. Opponent with 3 cards in hand here. Yeah, I mean that's a line, and I was thinking about it. Not sure if it's the best way to go. We sort of have to see what they're working with. Okay, so they pillaged my Hallowed Fountain. Not the best for us. Arbor Elf. So we've had 3 of our lands destroyed. They've cast a Bloodbraid Elf, which fortunately for us only cascaded into a Utopia Sprawl. I traded one of my oracles for an Arbor Elf, and that brings us to the beginning of my turn 5. Force, potentially useful. The opponent is getting low on cards. If they try to land a Haymaker like Chandra, we would be able to counter that. So no Uro this turn. Yep. I'm pretty sure we're on the same page here. Definitely getting the Hierarch down. And at this point, no reason to attack, so... Now, how I use this Ephemerate, I was a little bit unsure if I should hold it and then cast Uro and Ephemerate next turn just to gain extra life, whether I should use Path here, whether I should block and then sort of value Ghost Block Ephemerate with Coiling Oracle. Let's see if the opponent has any spells in their first main phase. Let's see. Let's keep the graveyards open, keep track of what's going on here. Okay, so second Bloodbraid Elf cascading into Lightning Bolt. So Lightning Bolt goes after Hierarch. Thoughts? Do we Ephemerate here? What do we want to do? Now, the cool thing about this is that the opponent is empty-handed. We have complete information. We can make our plays with total confidence that it should be the best among all options. All right, I love it. You guys are on the same page as me. So Force pretty clearly pitching the snake, right? I mean, Uro is such an engine that we surely would not pitch Uro, right? So Really like that we're all on the same page here. I think it's a really good line. So I'm going to force the bolt to protect our mana. Again, in this case, a bolt is virtually another pillage. Opponent has drawn 3 pillages so far this game. Okay, so now they're attacking for a whole bunch. Okay, any thoughts? What should we do? Are we ghost blocking, pathing? Path 1 elf. Let the snake die. Next turn, ephemerate Uro. So you're saying snake trades with Arbor Elf, or snake blocks Bloodbraid Elf? What's the why is the snake dying? So I do like trading with Arbor Elf. Again, trading a card that has already replaced itself for 3 mana is kind of a no-brainer. So I think that's awesome. And I do like pathing here just to sort of thin out their board a little bit. Obviously, giving them a land here, not going to make that big of a difference. They've already got a lot of mana. If we get rid of the Arbor Elf, they're going from like 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7 in their deck. That doesn't make a big difference. So all their cards cost like 4 or 5. So yes, I do like those blocks. But I'm sorry. Maybe I did this differently. There are so many turns in this game. Do I stick with these blocks? I think I may have ghost blocked. This is wild. They already have 1 billion mana. Well, no, the point of killing Elf is that we're at a fairly low life total, and they're just going to keep attacking every turn, right? Yes, DV Neal's on the same page with me, but I think what I did this turn was I think that I ephemerated, with the idea being that I'm fairly low on cards. If I ephemerate here, I take a little damage, but I do draw 2 more cards and potentially ramp myself. So I do have this path. It's going to come in handy at some point in the near future, but I didn't think this was the turn to path, I guess. So I haven't watched this replay, so I'm not like totally on top of all of these plays. It was 2 days ago, and again, it was a long match, so I don't think you can call this line wrong by any means, but I think maybe the timing might be okay to do what I did here. The opponent's empty-handed. If I go down to 4, it's not really that threatening. We do have a path to be able to deal with their creature next turn, and this just sort of tries to pull us a little bit further ahead in card advantage. So I guess that's the rationale, right? Let's see. Kale says ghost block and hope for a white source to path the other elf. Well, that would have been sort of optimal, right? If we hit white to be able to path right now. But as it went, I didn't think this was like a big deal taking 4 damage. So definitely a case to be made for either way there. But we are going to we did hit a land here, which is excellent. We're catching up on resources, and we'll catch the rebound and see what we draw off of that. Okay, so Hierarch and Chord, interesting. All right, so I think we're all on the same page here that playing Uro, obviously the way to go. Don't think we need to dwell necessarily on how to tap our mana. Though obviously, tapping mana in this deck, you have to think carefully, right? Because, well, the opponent's empty-handed here now, but if we decide to be a little greedy and leave up green, white, and blue for whatever reason, it can always get like bolted on our end step, and then we might not have enough mana for force or something like that, or for chord. So how we tap is definitely important. So what is the potential line here, right? We've only got this 1 land to play so far. Uro might draw us another land that we can play, but for the time being, we should actually be able to cast all of these 3 spells, right? Uro, Hierarch, and Path, right? So we are going to need all of this mana. Uro's going to gain us life, so shocking ourselves won't necessarily make a big difference. Or it makes it exactly a 2-point life total difference, which is significant when we're down at 7. So I think I did have to think really, really carefully about this breeding pool, like whether getting down the second Hierarch is that important. I think it is worth it. Going down to 5 with them being at 1 card or 0 cards, drawing up to 1 next turn. Just getting extra bodies on the battlefield. We're going to be able to convoke later from more with an extra noble hierarch. And I just think it was probably the best way to go. Yeah, right now they can't bolt on end step because they have no cards in hand. I just mean, as a general rule, you do have to be a little bit careful holding up hierarch as your mana, since it can get dealt with on your turn. And then if you're holding up things to do on their turn, it might not work out as well as you might hope. All right, so that's about it for this turn. I'm going to pass it back to the opponent, and I'm pretty sure now we're going to line up that block with the Arbor Elf. Going to line up maybe another block somewhere else. Let's sort of see how this plays out. Definitely have enough resources to be able to escape Uro next turn. So really, you get to the situation a lot in my build where your life total is being pretty heavily threatened in the first half dozen turns or so, and all you need to do is stay alive, escape Uro, and then you're kind of off to the races. Okay, opponent getting really aggro here. If you'll note, I was being very good with the clock. I was actually slightly ahead of the opponent at this point, even though there's clearly been a lot of decisions to make. So how do we block? Do we want to... Well, I think, as I said, I think we do want to block the Arbor Elf, but then do we want to let 3 damage through, or do we want to block with the Noble Hierarch? In which case, playing the Breeding Pool was paying 2 life now to prevent 3 damage on the opponent's turn. Yeah, I know. It is crazy talk, Kale. It's like, I'm almost never ahead on time. So the way that they're lined up, yeah, that's a good call. Although, this block doesn't really matter because I'm just going to path one of the Bloodbraid Elves anyway. So lined them up like this. I am going to let the Noble Hierarch chump here. All right, we're going to trade with this Arbor Elf. Totally fine. Board state looks very nice here. We've got the Uro coming. Nothing they can cast can deal 5 damage to us right now. So let's see what they've got in hand. Well, they just passed the turn, so that's awesome. Okay, Uro. As you guys know, that card always gives us lots and lots of options. So what is the play here? It might just seem obvious, just escape Uro, but as I just said, Venture gives us tons of options. Obviously, Cord can get many of the creatures in our deck. Eternal Witness gives us access to all this stuff. So pretty sure we've all agreed with decisions up to this point. Maybe there was some slight disagreement on turn 2 about what land to play around double land destruction or not, whether to play the Coatl or to play the Coiling Oracle. But so far we've been pretty well aligned on decision making. Anything but Uro seems unreasonable and greedy. Okay, that's very interesting. Path one of them, block the other 2. That was from before. Let's see. Yeah, I agree with DV Neal that the previous play was definitely to block and path to keep me outside of bolt range. That would have been a heartbreaker. Like if I just took 3 damage in order to keep the second Noble Hierarch, go down to 2, and then we see that the opponent top decked either Stomp or Lightning Bolt. They do still have 1 card in hand. So Freedy says anything but Uro seems unreasonable and greedy. I think I agree with that line. Uro just going to gain life, put us even safer. Is going to draw a card, potentially hit a land. And now we have a blocker for the Bloodbraid Elf, right? Another potential line was to go like Eternal Witness, get back Ephemerate, get Path to Exile, deal with the Bloodbraid Elf, and then, it doesn't really matter as far as life total goes, going up to 8 versus taking 3 from a Bloodbraid Elf at 8 going down. Anyhow, if you play Eternal Witness and path the Bloodbraid Elf, you're taking their 3 damage off the board, right? So we're likely to stick around at 5 anyway. And then we'd have an Ephemerate coming back, but as you said, pretty clear that Uro is the right choice there. We drew another Uro. I could have gotten in for 1 damage there with Hierarch, but choosing to play it a little bit more conservatively. Usually 1 point of damage is not what's going to swing a game like this. Opponent on 2 cards now. Attacking with Bloodbraid. Do we block? Do we not block? So I can start talking. I'm sure you guys are already typing some answers to this, but for me, I always block in these situations because if the opponent has a bolt, I would much rather they throw it at Uro to finish him off. I can just always escape him again the following turn. We're trading an Uro, which we can escape again for a Bloodbraid Elf and a Lightning Bolt. So for me, it's an easy block. And, you know, they're kind of representing the fact that they have a bolt here, because otherwise, why would they throw the Bloodbraid Elf away? But yeah, they have the bolt. It's a very easy decision for me. I mean, if I don't block, I'm taking 3, going down to 5. Still probably pretty safe. And then I can attack with Uro the following turn, generating more value. But I'm generating value just by blocking the Bloodbraid and getting the bolt out of their hand. Okay, so here's a Gargaroth. That is an excellent card, but we've basically stabilized here. Yeah, Freedy, I think you see it pretty clearly. The game is pretty much over from here. They're on 0 cards. At this point, we do have access to Ephemerate and Path to Exile, and I think that's actually what I chose to do. Since Uro as a blocker doesn't line up super well against Gargaroth, which generates value just by attacking, yeah, I could block it and trade with it, but I think just getting that Ephemerate loop, getting the pathing the Gargaroth before it can generate any value is going to do a better job defending the position that we've developed here. So that's what I went with. So I'm just going to Ephemerate right now. With them being empty-handed, I passed to their upkeep before using Path. No reason to give them extra resources. There's nothing that they can do during their upkeep. All right, so Gargaroth down. They're going to draw up to 1 card. I'm still ahead on the clock by about 2 minutes. Opponent seems to have ripped a second Gargaroth. A pretty good top deck, but it's not going to save them here. Okay, so Ephemerate on Eternal Witness, get back Ephemerate. As you guys know, we drew a land for the turn, which is nice. We get to thin our deck a little bit. We're really not afraid of anything, so just go ahead and shock. Going to Ephemerate, get back Path to Exile. Again, going to wait to their upkeep, but now we have enough resources that we can actually path and just go ahead and escape Uro right now. We've got Exaxes on the resources in the graveyard. So gain 3 more life, draw a second path, and, you know, this is going to be extremely hard for the Ponza player to claw their way back into, and they just conceded. So, yeah, I would agree that I don't think anything that they could top deck would kill me. I mean, the Gargaroth was probably the best possible top deck, but the fact that I'm looping Path to Exile is pretty powerful. Seems like the best thing that they could hope for would be to rip like a Bolt, or potentially even a Chandra, right? Like, rip a Chandra, try to kill Eternal Witness, try to have me send an Uro attack at Chandra just so that they stay alive a little bit longer, and then potentially draw into things that can answer Uro, of which they don't have too many, I don't think. Like, what does Ponza play that can actually deal well with Uro? I can't think of anything, really. Double Bolt, obviously, but it's kind of a hard card for them to deal with. Oh, well, a Bloodbraid Elf, of course, generates tons and tons of value, right? So Bloodbraid into Klothys. Yeah, no, I mean, we pulled way ahead there, but if you think back to their turn 3, they blew up both of my first 2 lands, and all I had was a snake. They hit, I think, 2 Bloodbraid Elves, double Gargaroth, Lightning Bolts, triple Pillage. Yeah, it just shows how well I think our value deck lines up against Ponza. So that was game 1. We'll go ahead to game 2. Opponent going to be on the play again. Obviously a mulligan, kind of sad. Is this a keep or is this a mulligan? Remember that this is our 6. This is not our 7. It's obviously not amazing, this hand. That's why it's kind of a question. Any thoughts on whether we keep or ship this? All right, so for me, on 6, this is a keep. We've got the lands that we need to go get basics up front. We've got Hierarch to further help our mana situation. The first part of any game against Ponza is a battle for resources. They're going to try to blow up my lands. They're going to try to play Blood Moon, often on turn 2. So we have to make sure we get a basic out, and it's excellent if we can get a Noble Hierarch out as well. Obviously, I'm going to need to draw into some actual resource cards, value cards, but for me, this is fine, and I'll just bottom one of these lands. I mean, there's not a lot to love about this hand. It's got lands and spells. Opponent kept their 7, so it's going to be a hard fight. We can keep in mind throughout game 2 that we're starting with probably, well, not probably, but definitely like an extremely borderline resource light 6, a mulligan to 6. So Kale, you think it's a keep, but it's pretty bad. I agree. Opponent has their turn 1 ramp. They chose red for Utopia Sprawl, of course. Force lets us counter like a turn 2 Blood Moon, which is something, right? So we're going to go get a Forest and play Hierarch. And they go for it. So I had to think about this a little bit because we've got nice mana here. Like green, white, blue from Hierarch. And then if they try to stomp Hierarch next turn, we can force that. Like maybe Blood Moon doesn't matter so much. Maybe I can hold my force for like a Chandra. Maybe for a Pillage. What do you guys think about forcing the Blood Moon? Is it pretty obvious or is it not obvious? Is it, you know, debatable? Yeah, I agree with you, Freedy. We have these we have these fetches in hand, which we'd love to actually be able to crack and make our mana a little bit more robust. You may have noticed that I've got really nice fetches to be able to actually get green, blue, and white basics in case they land a second Blood Moon. So, Kale, yeah, we're all on the same page. So, you know, going further down, card disadvantage here. Okay, so Coatl is super clutch there because now we can play Misty, get an island, and hold up Ephemerate. So that has a chance to actually sort of keep us in this game. So opponent went with turn 2 Blood Moon, one of their best openings here. Hitting their land drops, playing ahead of curve still. Relic is annoying, but you know we don't have any graveyard cards in hand right now, so apart from it generating an extra card for the opponent when they crack it, it's probably not going to really slow us down too much. Yeah, I agree with you guys. So they're just passing the turn here with 3 mana up, which is interesting. They do have 3 cards left in hand. We'll get an island, flash in the Coatl, and do you guys Ephemerate here or do you not Ephemerate here? It's an interesting question. It's sort of a basic fundamental mechanic in the deck, how to think about Ephemerate. So Freedy says no. Yeah, no, I agree with not, right? Because this just representing any number of like bolts and stomps, right? Exactly. So this is something I think that takes a little while to learn when you're playing the deck. It's easy to oh my goodness, it's pretty loud. It's easy to get overexcited with Ephemerate and be like, yes, I get to draw a lot of cards, but you really want to use Ephemerate like to its absolute maximum value, and that is not just drawing cards, but it's also to protect our creatures and potentially use it as a counterspell, particularly when we're on a mulligan, particularly when we're trying to get things going, right? We don't have a handful of value where we can actually afford to risk playing Ephemerate. There are situations where going for Ephemerate here are totally justifiable. For example, when we want to get more cards into the graveyard for Uro, going Ephemerate Coatl is actually pretty nice, because if they have a bolt, it gets a bolt out of their hand, and it just throws 2 more cards into the graveyard to escape Uro. So that was a really, really unfortunate draw there. Just means we're gonna have to wait longer to actually start generating anything, getting things going in this game. I'm gonna play the Vista here. I was going to get a basic with Windswept Heath, a basic Plains, but now I can keep it in hand to give me more options and use the Vista, the more narrow of the fetches. We'll get in for 2, see if the opponent wants to go for a bolt. They do not. They do crack their relic. Seems like after that turn 2 Blood Moon, they may have actually run pretty low on resources. So relic off the board, which obviously pretty good for us. Opponent with access to 5 mana here. All right, so they have a Gargaroth on turn 4. So now is definitely the time to Ephemerate the Snake. We need to draw those cards. We need to find an answer to the Gargaroth. Crack the Vista, thin the deck, give ourselves a little bit better chance at hitting a Path to Exile, or just something that can deal with this Gargaroth. You know, why don't I show you guys my sideboard plan while we're talking about drawing cards? So I think I got a little bit low on time and might not have made absolutely correct decisions, but for the most part, like, I'm very confident with my sideboarding plan in the matchup. Now, in order to sort of tell you guys what I brought in, I might need to actually show you the deck list, but first we'll talk about what I took out and how many cards I took out. So just counting the cards I took out, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so, and then I would have brought in a bunch of removal, basically. Let me show you guys the list. Would have brought in 3 Purges, 1 Worship, and 1 Winds of Abandon. So basically the top row here. So we have tons and tons of answers to their red threats, of which there are, there is the highest density in their deck, their threats being red. But they do have Scavenging Ooze, they do have Gargaroth, against which Celestial Purge is pretty poor. Winds of Abandon, obviously pretty excellent, and Worship is just extremely difficult for them to beat. So going back in here, we did take out Venser, 1 Eternal Witness, 1 Uro, and 2 Soulherders. Now the rationale being that Soulherder dies so easily to Stomp and Lightning Bolt, we'd rather lean more heavily on Ephemerate for blinks. Venser is okay in the matchup, particularly in game 1, but in game 2, they get so many resources out that bouncing things back to their hand, it's kind of a tempo play, and it's often not going to win games. I think we had Venser in hand towards the end of game 1, and it didn't really seem like it was going to do too much. So Venser comes out, 2 Soulherders come out, and then 1 Witness and 1 Uro. Now Uro is excellent. Obviously Eternal Witness is excellent as well. But I've just seen through experience that one of the ways that Ponza really tries to fight us is with Graveyard Hate. We've already seen a Relic. We know that they main deck Klothys, and I'm pretty sure they have extra copies of Scavenging Ooze in the sideboard. So typically in games 2 and 3, they're coming at us with a lot more Graveyard Hate. And so we just want to trim down a little bit on the graveyard value cards. And I think this is a pretty balanced approach. That's all just to explain that when I start ephemerating, there are those 3 Celestial Purges that we can draw that would do absolutely nothing here. Ephemerate's pretty nice. Now, I did not use the second Ephemerate immediately, just because, again, we do like to be able to hold it up to protect the board that we've developed. Now, you guys might disagree with me on that, and it is an interesting point, a potential point of argument. Like, you guys, I could totally see a case if I had the mana up to use the second Ephemerate there. I felt it was more prudent just to sort of keep it in hand for the time being. Unfortunately, Ghost blocking doesn't really work against Trample. But we do have Death Touch, which is nice. We will be able to sort of get the Gargaroth off the table. However, they are going to get to generate some value with it. All right, so just not drawing well. If you've been paying attention, it's been a whole bunch of lands, and I think like an extra Ephemerate since the opening hand. Afridi would have dug deeper. Well, I still can dig deeper. I've got lots and lots of mana, and the only thing that really matters off the top is a path. If I choose to wait to use my Ephemerate, then I could do it on my turns. Obviously, still have enough mana up if I do draw the path. So I think it's hard to make a definitive case that using the Ephemerate on their end step, the second Ephemerate, is like strictly correct. But I brought it up because there's definitely an argument to be made there. For example, now this thing has Death Touch, and if they go for something like a Lightning Bolt, I do have an Ephemerate up to protect at least the removal spell here that I have already on the board. All right, they're casting something. Okay, so Bloodbraid Elf, we're drawing lands. They're drawing, double spells here. Fortunately, they only hit a Utopia Sprawl. Okay, straight to combat. No bolts for the Icefang Coatl. What are they going to do with this thing? All right, drawing a card seems good. When they have tons of mana, they just want to draw into their Haymakers. So, another option, I think, another very good option for them would have just been to make a 3/3 Beast, because all they want, I obviously have to block this Gargaroth here, and they're going to keep drawing creatures. If they keep making creatures, they're going to just lean on my Hierarchs, and they could easily win the game that way. But, drawing cards, they have a lot of amazing cards in their deck, so I think drawing cards slightly better than making a 3/3 Beast here. Ghost, let's see. Ghost Bolt. Ghost Block. Not Bolt. I'm guessing you're just saying Ghost Block Bloodbraid Elf. Now, I very strongly disagree with that line, both because they're representing Bolt here, and because this thing is going to continually generate value. So my play is just to trade with the Gargaroth. There's like no other possibility in my eyes. I'm going to take 5+3. It's a lot of damage, but the Gargaroth isn't going away otherwise. I just need to get rid of that thing. There's no reason to sort of hope and pray that I draw into a path when I have an actual answer to it on the board. All right, so now obviously Ephemerate, not as good since I can't draw cards anymore, but we do have blockers. This guy doesn't have trample, and, we're going to be able to draw some cards before we die. All right, so that's pretty funny. I drew a path to exile. So Ephemerating in that spot would have worked, but I stand by my line. We can't gamble in that spot. If I just take 6 from the Gargaroth, let them continue drawing cards, that's not going to work out for us. Right now, totally fine. Like, just path their Bloodbraid Elf. We've got time. We've got lots of good cards to draw into. We can continue to thin the deck. I am going to attack here for 2. Okay, opponent got more gas to play. Blood Moon, not anything I can really do about that except go ahead and crack this Windswept Heath. Get our second white source onto the battlefield. I am going to just path here. For me, again, there's not much question. They have 1 threat on the board. We're going to deal with it. We can always draw Eternal Witnesses to get it back. And they're following up with Boil. So, if I'm not mistaken, they just cast this Blood Moon. You guys see the Nombo here? You see the sequencing? You see the sequencing error? Yeah, pretty bad, right? They could have blown up 2 of my lands, but they played Blood Moon first and then played Boil. So this Hallowed Fountain is going to stick around. So basically, this is a 4-mana pillage to get rid of my island. So, well done, opponent. All right, so we hit a Coiling Oracle, which is going to turn on our Ephemerate, and we are sort of right back in this. Now, remember that the opponent is going to have 3 cards in their hand next turn. We drew a Celestial Purge, which is awesome. Might as well go ahead and get in for 2. They've got no threats on the board, and we've got enough mana to cast both spells in our hand here. Opponent plays a land, so they're not drawing amazingly here, but they do have another Gargaroth. So I guess that is pretty good. And here's one of those Celestial Purges that doesn't answer the Gargaroth. Well, so I think I mentioned earlier that this guy does have two full pages of 5/0s on Goldfish, mostly with other decks. They do have one playing Ponza, but it was pre-Gargaroth. So this is a list that the opponent has not gotten any published results with yet. So anyhow, the opponent is a very talented Magic player. They've got lots and lots of results, but that sequencing was a little bit off. And you can see they're actually behind on time, so maybe they have a bad connection, not exactly sure what's going on. And another Blood Moon, which puts them at empty-handed. So I think it's probably a good time to cast this Ephemerate, generate some value. Uro is amazing. Actually gives us a way to fight against this Gargaroth. Now, the double Blood Moon is actually kind of annoying, because if it was just a single Blood Moon, I'd be able to purge it and then have access to lots of mana, potentially be able to actually cast and escape Uro in one turn. But pretty clear to see here that I don't have the resources to do that with the double Blood Moon out. So, Uro, just an excellent card, though, because we can cast it here, and then untap and escape it, and that is a way to deal with the Gargaroth, assuming that the opponent doesn't draw, like something amazing to finish us off. All right, so here's Uro gaining a little bit of life. Blade Splicer, pretty nice card, gets more defense on the battlefield. I actually replaced. I was splashing black semi-recently for Siege Rhino. It was the only black card in the deck, and I felt like it wasn't really worth the splash eventually. Like back in the past when I was playing black, I started with like Abrupt Decays, Assassin's Trophies, Siege Rhinos, and some other black cards, particularly in the sideboard. But gradually, I just whittled it down to just Hostage Taker and Siege Rhino. Then recently, just Siege Rhino, and as I was saying, I didn't feel like it was really worth making the mana base as weird as it was getting just for the Siege Rhino, and I replaced the Siege Rhino with a Blade Splicer. I have a bunch of experience playing Blade Splicer in this deck. It's particularly excellent in the build with Dorks because powering out a 3/3 First Striker on turn 2, with Ephemerate, we can generate 2 more of those guys. Basically, every time you Ephemerate Blade Splicer, you get like 2 3/3 First Strikers. It's pretty nuts. Rhino is awesome. It's true. If you're going to play Rhino, I would say you might want to play like 3 of them to really justify the Black Splash. All right, so opponent untaps. They had just the Gargaroth in hand, and they go to attacks here. So what are they going to do? They're going to draw a card. Okay, they see that Uro is coming. I've got a lot of creatures. I'm at a relatively healthy life total here. So I think I'm fine just to take the 6 damage here. I'm not that afraid of like double bolt here. If they happen to draw running bolts, then I'm dead. So opponent plays a land. So one of the 2 cards in their hand was a land. And what was the other card? All right, this was such a sad moment for me. Ponza, when they bring the Scavenging Ooze in, it always comes at the perfect moment. Like, they were empty-handed, and on this turn, they drew a Scavenging Ooze just before I get to escape Uro. Now, not only do they get to eat Uro, but they get to eat the Icefang Coatl, they get to eat their Gargaroth, and now Scavenging Ooze is gaining life. It's a big threat by itself. Like, it's just an obscene top deck. All right, so there goes that. There goes that. They're just going to spend all their mana. They're empty-handed. And, we drew an Oracle, which is okay, but it's no Uro, basically. And we keep hitting lands, like just way too many lands this game. Remember, we started with a shaky mulligan to 6. We did excellently to stabilize. We had Uro coming, but they drew the answer right on time. And, you know, they play great cards. They're going to draw them sometimes. You can see the opponent has drawn a lot of lands as well. They were due for a good top deck probably. And yeah, just going to eat some more and attack with their creatures. Blocks, you know, at this point, the opponent has pulled pretty significantly ahead. Kind of our only out at this point is like a path or maybe an Uro into a path. So just going to throw the Golem in front of the Gargaroth, take 3 over the top, and just chump the Scavenging Ooze with one of the snakes. Okay, so we're going down to 1. Just need that path, like, immediately. But, okay, the opponent has a Pillage. Now, this was weird, because they pillaged one of my planes. And I was like, okay, I get to untap. And then they had a Lightning Bolt. It's like, well, if you've got the Lightning Bolt, just Lightning Bolt me, man. I guess maybe they're trying to draw out a counterspell. That's the explanation for the pillage. So, but I don't know. Whatever. It's probably a tight play. And just thinking through it now, probably makes a lot of sense. I got a little bit salty about it. I didn't type anything, but you know, it's like, man, if you got the Lightning Bolt, just use it. So this was kind of a heartbreaker of a game for me because you guys may or may not know that Ponza is a pretty strong matchup for us. Kept a shaky hand, drew a lot of lands when you know we were really just looking for gas. Got lucky with a couple of top decks, found an Uro, and you know just to have it ripped out from underneath us like the last second. So very close game 2. Ponza player has managed to equalize, though they are fairly low on time here. All right, so let's go back to this screen and we'll go to game 3 here. Yeah, I think it was a good play. I think it was pretty smart. Because they didn't know that I had the Celestial Purge, I think. So I'm going to be on the play here and hoping for some good stuff. Okay, keep or mulligan. It's obviously not a very straightforward, just snap keep kind of hand. But, you know, matchup specific hand. Good enough or potential mulligan? Anybody else other than Freedy actively listening to this? So we've got a lot of feedback from Freedy, which is awesome. But let's get Kale in here and maybe DV Neil. Who else might be watching? Panda, El Rodeo-san. So Freedy doesn't like it. I'm not super crazy about it. This is why I'm asking you guys, you know, your thoughts on if we should mulligan it, or it doesn't have a blue card for force. And if they get their ramp going on turn 2, they could cast their Blood Moon. We might not be able to actually get the force off in time. So, and I'll wait like 10 more seconds. See if you keep and get a planes. Yeah, so I mean, for me guys, this is sideboard tech, Celestial Purge. Often you're bringing in sideboard cards because they're particularly excellent in the matchup. We've got tons of creatures in the deck. We're going to draw creatures. For me, this is actually not that close of a hand. Like, not really that close. For me, this is like, I'm kind of happy to have this hand because all we want to do is get our basics. We've got blue, green, and white here. We've got 3 removal spells, flexible removal spells. We've got a path for a Gargaroth, Purge for a Blood Moon, for a Klothys, for whatever they want to bring, and then a backup for like a, what do you call that crazy dragon? Glorybringer. So for me, yeah, this is not that close. Obviously, I'd like to have maybe a snake instead of one of the Purges or something, but for me, I'm pretty happy about this hand. Opponent kept 7 as well. I don't think they mulliganed once in the match. So I'm going to open with Misty with the plan of getting a forest. I'm not going to have to use this Purge on turn 1. If I draw a snake, getting a forest instead of a plains gives me at least the opportunity to cast a snake on turn 2. Hey Dryad, I don't think I've seen you in a while. It's awesome to have you here. Okay, opponent with the Windswept Heath. They must have some kind of ramp for turn 1. Utopia Sprawl, totally fine. Looks. Why did I not crack the Misty Rainforest? Do you guys have some insight into that? Would you have cracked it? Did I make a mistake? I mean, might have been a mistake. I do stupid stuff like that all the time. So anyhow, maybe you guys are typing responses. There is a lag, but it was not a mistake. It was intentional. So I Interesting. So Freedy says, no matter what I draw. Now, we drew something pretty interesting here, right? We drew an Oracle, which means that now we might want to play it, right? So not cracking it, just to remind you guys, it came up in game 1. If the opponent plays or wants to play something like Pillage on turn 2, they can't do it against Fetches. Fetches just sort of turn that off. So... So are we playing the Oracle here, or are we just holding up mana for Celestial Purge? This is a fairly significant decision point, so I'm kind of okay taking a moment and seeing what your guys' opinions are here. All right, so Freedy says. Okay, so McDurp, I might have missed your message. You play Heath and pass, play turn off Pillage. I like that, so I'm with you guys. I'm going to play the Heath. Now, you want to hold up Purge, but also it's important to note that Coiling Oracle is now something that we can pitch to Force if we do want to do that. Okay, so of course, as always, they have 3 mana on turn 2. Okay, so decision time. Obviously, well, we could force this if we want to. We're gonna crack our. They're tapped out, so it might as well be their end step. So we can crack these lands, go get a forest, go get a plains. I believe that's the first decision that I made. All right, so I've got a forest, I've got a plains. Now, do I want to use a purge on Blood Moon? We've got only basics anyway. So I could force it, I could purge it. It's a bunch of options here. Do I let it stick around or do I purge it? I guess that's another option, right? I could let it resolve and just not do anything about it, right? So moving ahead, I'm going to let it resolve and I'm going to purge it because I've got 2 purges in hand. I'm going to be left with 1. I've got mana up. Might as well use it efficiently. We can totally draw into a bunch of fetches, which Blood Moon would make pretty annoying. And, just the idea of mana efficiency, I think, is pretty relevant. Yeah, I'm happy that you guys are on board with the way that I chose to play it. All right, so we get rid of their Blood Moon, their powerful turn 2 play. We've got responses. So we drew into Uro. So now, obviously, more and more options. And honestly, I'm not sure that I chose completely correctly here. I think both of these have a lot to be said for them. Keeping Oro in hand, there's an argument to be made just to play it like at the end of the game when we have enough mana, enough resources to be able to just cast it and then escape it all at once. So I'm pretty sure I went with the Oracle here. My thought was I just kind of want to start developing a bit of a board. If I draw into Ephemerate, obviously that's going to be pretty good. We wouldn't want to Ephemerate Uro here since we don't have like a Coatl to be able to flash in. So yeah, no, I I agree with Freedy. It's obviously pretty close. And yes, pitching Oro to force would feel very, very bad. But I can always just draw a blue card here, and there's not necessarily too much that I would need to force since I have Celestial Purge. So I drew my Singleton Worship, which is, for those of you who do not know, a very, very good card in this matchup, and sort of a justification for, or what do I want to say here? I guess it kind of justifies playing out the Coiling Oracle because it does want us to have bodies on the battlefield. Okay, play Wooded Foothills, crack it, get a forest, and looks like they've got a Bloodbraid Elf, which, you know, not surprising. It's turn 3. What else would they do? So it's been turn 2 Blood Moon into turn 3 Bloodbraid Elf. We've been pretty fortunate with the Cascades this match. They've had plenty of Bloodbraid Elves, but all of their Cascades have pretty much hit like 1-drops. Now, Arbor Elf is pretty solid here since they have a Utopia Sprawl. It's significant ramp, but we'd rather have the Arbor Elf than cascading into like a Pillage, for example. So I've got the mana up here. I feel like pathing is the way to go. Not too much of a question. You guys can agree or disagree. Seemed okay to me. Now, of course, the case against pathing is that we've got to purge if we really want to deal with that Bloodbraid Elf like next turn, and we can save the path for like a Gargaroth, which can't be answered by a Celestial Purge, but we do have the Worship down, so we're potentially not really that worried about something like a Gargaroth. So we're really, really, really trying to draw lands to get Worship down. And if we don't draw lands, the next best thing is creatures to sort of prime our board state so that it's like extra good for when Worship does come down. So I'm still going with Oracle here. The Worship kind of shifts the calculus towards getting bodies on the battlefield, whereas Uro once again just goes to the graveyard. You can see the opponent getting fairly low on time here, 3 minutes left, but it is a pretty aggressive deck, and we're stuck on 3 lands, so sort of have to see how it plays out. Okay, so we hit a Blade Splicer. Can't cast any of our spells except alternate casting cost Force. So I could have snuck in an attack there, but didn't really feel like it was very necessary. Opponent's got access to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana this turn, and with 4 cards in hand, a little bit scary. Okay, so they found a Gargaroth. The clock is ticking. We really need to find that land. Like last game, we drew like 8,000 lands. This game, we can't draw any. So hopefully this is not a Pillage. It's a Blood Moon. All right, so I think at this point, probably want to let Blood Moon resolve just because Uro is so valuable. And I can't imagine pitching it to counter Blood Moon when, you know, we have 4 lands anyway. Even if we draw a Shock or a Path off the top, sorry, a Shock or a Fetch, we can still make red mana with it. So Blood Moon is going to resolve. And actually, we'd like them to just keep drawing Blood Moons at this point. Oh my god. This is the worst when like the opponent is hitting their like crazy bombs and like all you need is 1 land, but you just can't get there. So is there what do you guys think here? Do we do Uro and try to dig for that land? Do we get Blade Splicer out to sort of further expand our board? Like, we are at 18 life, not in any super imminent danger. Freedy says Uro now. It's a nice option. It does take the blue card out of our hand if we need to force something very important. Yeah, maybe a Chandra or like an Anger of the Gods. Anger of the Gods would be unfortunate because then, you know, Worship wouldn't really work anymore. I thought that Uro was the best option in this spot. I was getting pretty desperate for the land, exactly. So let's go ahead. Play that Uro. Hope the opponent doesn't have the Timely Scavenging Ooze again. Okay, or so we hit not just a land, but another basic, which is excellent because it turns on Skyclave Apparition, as well as giving us enough mana to play Worship. All right, so as I mentioned, Force of Negation temporarily offline, but we really didn't want to pitch Uro. So not sure if the opponent is paying attention to the revealed cards or not. They did get kind of got in game one. They attacked with an Arbor Elf. I ephemerated when they knew I had the Ephemerate, and I was able to trade with an Arbor Elf, which they almost certainly should not have attacked with if they knew I had the Ephemerate. But this Worship is setting up to sort of blow them out pretty hard. Okay, Relic of Progenitus. Very nice answer to Uro, which is pretty sad. But if you think about the mana here, we need another green source and another blue source around Blood Moon to be able to escape Uro. Probably not happening anytime in the near future. All right, so they're bolting my face. Usually that happens when they have Pyromancer in hand so that they can, just draw 2 cards. So pretty nice last card in hand to be able to draw 2 extra cards. Going to combat, getting in with, okay, they've got enough resources now. I think attacking with the Arbor Elf is sort of fine. I guess they're probably going to... Oh, well, now they're creating tokens here. Now, this to me makes me think that they are not looking at the revealed cards from Coiling Oracle, because making a 3/3 beast is not going to help them against Worship. Whereas drawing cards, if they have any Anger of the Gods or even something like Cindervines, which could blow up Worship in the deck, all they want to do is dig right now. So I was really happy to see them making a 3/3 beast. Obviously not blocking anything, since at this point, these creatures are just sort of religious zealots trying to support the Church of Serra here. And to trade them would just, reduce my congregation. All right, so they crack the relic right away, get rid of the Uro. Can't blame them. But again, I couldn't escape it for another couple turns anyway. Prismatic Vista coming down as a mountain. And we get to just play our Worship and hope that they don't draw into an Anger of the Gods or, again, a Cindervines, and just sort of sit back for a moment. Try to not freak out. This big guy is just a pretty scary card. Okay, opponent getting in with everybody. Once again, I need to protect my congregation here. They're coming in for 9, 10, 11, 12, but they made another beast, not really learning their lesson. Maybe they did know about the Worship, but just aren't really thinking too clearly. All right, and any follow-ups? Another Blood Moon. Okay, it's not that bad for us. So, you might ask yourself, like, how do we win here? The answer is basically any number of ways, really, because, well, the opponent's at 1 minute, so we're going to win because of the clock. But as long as the Worship is on the board, there's really very little that they can do. The Blood Moon is unfortunate because we would really, really like to get double blue to be able to hold up force in the event that they draw something to answer the Worship. But for the time being, we can just sort of sit behind the Worship. Definitely going to play the Blade Splicer here to get 2 bodies on the battlefield. Just make sure that there's absolutely no chance that they can sort of cheese me with spot removal. Yeah, no, I mean, we can't really, right? But at the same time, if they just rip an Anger of the Gods, my whole board goes away, and we're immediately just dead. No, but it's really not Dryad. It's no fetching does kill me, and I can't fetch anyway because of Blood Moon. But fetching does kill you on Worship because you're allowed to pay 1 life. And paying life is different than taking damage, and Worship cares about damage. So it's a good lesson to learn that if you do have fetches that you can crack, and you have any life to work with at all, just if you have Worship down, crack your fetches immediately. Because if your opponent attacks you from 5 life down to 1 life, now you can't crack your fetches anymore. So just always crack your fetches immediately. Unfortunately, both of these fetches came down after Blood Moon. What I was saying a moment ago is if they top deck an Anger of the Gods, it sort of negates the worship, since all of my, again, the congregation goes away and they just kill me right away. So I was just praying at this point. I only have like one removal spell. This Gargaroth. Oh, sorry, to finish responding to Dryad. The first choice on Gargaroth is creating a beast, but there's no justification for that because the opponent's going to lose the game unless they draw cards that will deal with worship. Again, it has to be Anger of the Gods. It has to be Cindervines. If they don't have either of those cards, they should probably just scoop. If they do have those cards, then that's a reason for them to not scoop. But they have to draw cards, and this thing gives them card draw. All right, and so wasting an opportunity to draw an out. Oh, so now I think they have realized that they should be drawing cards. So they go for it. I cross my fingers, take 1,000,000 damage, but it gets reduced to 0. Okay, we'll play our land, get another creature on the battlefield, get rid of, that thing. And the opponent's at 41 seconds. Again, they can top deck an Anger of the Gods, just hoping that they do not. Klothys. Now, without checking, guys, do you think that Klothys is an answer to worship? Assuming that I have something in the graveyard. Let's imagine that the opponent happens to get a lightning bolt or something into the graveyard. So, I can zoom into Klothys and answer the question right now, but does it kill us around worship? Freedy says that Klothys does kill us through worship. Could be. Obviously I have a Purge in hand, so I could deal with it, but the question is just whether Klothys itself, if it does get to go to their next turn, does it kill me? Well, so Freedy says lose life. Anybody else have any ideas? Yeah, there's a lot of things that can kill us through worship. There's like collective brutality, really anything that loses life, like fetch lands as another example. It's interesting that you guys don't know this. It's a pretty popular modern card. So let's go ahead and check out the text. So go ahead and read that, and then tell me if you change your answer. It's very strange because it's a drain life effect, or it seems like it, but it's actually not a drain life effect. It's 2 damage and then a separate clause that like gains life. So yes, it deals damage. There is almost nothing in that Ponza plays that kills us if we have creatures and worship on the board. Actually, I think it's just 0 because Cindervines also does damage. Like I've had a game where the opponent plays a Cindervines and I have worship down, but I had a Pithing Needle naming Cindervines, so they couldn't crack the Cindervines to kill the worship. But Cindervines does trigger and deal damage every single time I cast a non-creature spell. Again, deals damage. Klothys deals damage. Everything that red does deals damage. No, and you're totally right. Whenever there's gaining life being linked with some kind of damaging effect, historically in Magic, that would be associated with black, and it goes back to the alpha when there was a card called Drain Life, and I think it was just like black and X. Maybe it'd been black and X. I can't remember. And the opponent loses X life and you gain X life, right? And so that's where the verb just like drain came from Drain Life. But green gains life and red deals damage, right? So in a dual colored card like green and red, you'd actually expect like the consistent application of sort of the color pie is to deal damage and gain life. Like it's really exclusively in black that you have that lose life kind of effect. Now, with that being said, I guess I want to ask you guys, do you think, and if you know the answer, maybe I'm making it obvious, but does Creeping Chill beat us through worship? Yes or no? I already said collective brutality kills us, and they're both black. So do you think that it's worship is pretty good against Dredge, but if they hit those Creeping Chills, are they going to kill us or are they not going to kill us? Freedy says it should. It should. It's black, right? Like it's literally like 3 damage to you, gain 3 over here. It's a black card. It should be. But let's check it out. It's an educational stream right here. I have to lower the quantity to 0. And because I don't own any Creeping Chills, I would just like delete them if I somehow picked one up. All right, so we have Creeping Chills here, and let's check. Like, I know the answer, guys. I 100% know the answer, but I just want to show you guys. So it doesn't kill through worship. We're all good. Creeping Chill does not drain us, but it's super weird, right? It seems like it should, but it doesn't. Good to know. Good to know. So again, one of the things that does get us Collective Brutality. Collective Brutality does make a target opponent lose 2 life. That is a drain effect, right? So Collective Brutality beats us through Worship. I've lost to that with Worship out. The next card I want to ask you guys about is an Orzhov card. Now, do you remember when Orzhov, it was in Return to Ravnica, I think, they had a new mechanic. God, I forget what it's called. It's like that you could pay 1 or something like that and drain life whenever you cast a spell or something like that. And so Orzhov's mechanic in Ravnica was a drain effect. I think it's like Tithe, or what was that? What was that mechanic called in Return to Ravnica that Orzhov had? It was definitely like you pay 1 mana and you drain 1, and it happened whenever you did something. I think it was when you cast spells or something. Exhort. And extort. So are there what is a card that has extort on it? I wonder if I can just type extort and have that come up. Yeah, I think I can. Cool. All right, so this card has extort, right? Whenever you cast a spell, any spell, you can pay either white or black. If you do it, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much. So again, a throwback to drain life. It's a very, very black effect. And so you expect when you're dealing with black, but in particular with Orzhov, that the cards should drain. Now, a card that I want to bring up to your guys' attention here is the Kaya Planeswalker that actually sees some play in Dead Guy Ale and a few other sort of fringe decks. This is another card that just deals damage. So check out that ultimate. Read the text on that ultimate. Right? Kaya deals damage, and then they gain life. Very strange. And I'm not exactly sure like what this sort of shift in black, or particularly in Orzhov, towards dealing damage versus losing life, like when that happened. I think it might just be like a rules change at this point. Like I think they decided to take away effects that cause you to lose life because maybe it was confusing to newer players. And so even though we have like a card that absolutely 100% should drain because it's Orzhov and that's its thing, that's what that guild does. Kaya doesn't do it anymore because it came after this rule change, I think. And it's possible that Creeping Chill, actually I'd say it's likely that Creeping Chill came after this rule change as well, because otherwise Creeping Chill would certainly drain, right? So hopefully you guys enjoy that little dive into Magic rules. Now, Kale, you're saying you don't like Worship. Is it because you think that it's clunky and it doesn't work very well, or do you think that do you not like it because you think it's cheesy, or what? Let's get back to the game. I've got Worship down. Opponents starting to draw cards. They're at 30 seconds, and they scooped. So not necessarily a triumph for me because we do have a good matchup against Ponza. I just thought it was really, really interesting. It had a lot of decision points, and for those of you who have been with me now through this entire replay, in game 1 on turn 3, the opponent blew up both of my lands, and we had to play really tight from being very far behind, losing 2 lands on turn 3. And, we were able to do it because our deck is extremely versatile, very, very resilient. And yeah, I thought it was a very cool match. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that replay. I thought it was a really nice match. So, anyhow, I'm gonna take a quick break, run to the bathroom. If you guys have any thoughts on draining versus damage and gaining life, any thoughts on worship, please share it in the chat, and I'll be back in just 1 minute. Excuse me. Uh, Another reason I really like doing a replay like this every now and then is I've mentioned a few times that I think it's great having the opportunity to ask you guys what you think the correct line is, because most of the time we're going to agree, because there's always going to, well, not always, there's often going to be just an obvious best line, right? But there's many small details and options that this deck presents. Even just like, do we want to play an Oracle or do we want to play a Coatl, Which land do we play? What's the sequencing? And it's possible that I can learn something from you guys. Possible you guys can learn something from me. So yeah, that's part of the reason I like doing these replays every now and then. Kale, as far as not caring for the playstyle of sitting behind one card and hope that they don't have answers, I think it's not the and I'm not being insulting at all here. I don't think that's the best way to think about worship in particular. I do think that the playstyle you're describing is the playstyle of Blood Moon, where the whole idea of the card is to increase your overall win rate by just getting free wins against decks with with greedy mana bases. And it is what it is, and it does win games. And in the modern format, you should be prepared to play against Blood Moon. I consider worship to be significantly different than Blood Moon, and I guess I can try to explain why. First of all, the whole concept of Soulherder is to get as much time as you can get, because the more time that we get, the more likely it is that we're going to win. We have infinite turn combos. We have massive value engines that are going to sort of let us turn the corner and pull ahead against virtually any other deck in the format. And to that end, Worship is just a card that synergizes extremely well with what we're already doing, which is to say, going wide with little creatures, right? We need defense in the first half dozen turns of the game, and honestly, like even the first 3 or 4 turns of the game more than any other turns. And so Worship is something that does that for us. The whole point of Worship is to gain time. Now, if it does its job, we gain a few turns towards stabilizing. We get to draw Eternal Witness, get the loop going, play a Soulherder, get Uro going, gain a bunch of life, stabilize. At which point, if they deal with Worship, that's totally fine. It's a powerful spell that can effectively read, you take 4 extra turns, right? Because the decks that we bring it in against are just trying to damage us, right? If we make their damage meaningless, now all of a sudden it's like they're not even taking turns. It doesn't matter. You draw as many lightning bolts as you want. If we're sitting back with like 5 creatures and a bunch of ephemerates, good luck, basically. So for me, it's not the same as trying to cheese free wins, though on its face, that's kind of what it does. But again, decks should have answers to problematic cards, like these enchantments. But a lot of people kind of skimp on them, I think, particularly these kinds of aggressive decks. And as I mentioned, I think it's just very synergistic. Whereas, Blood Moon, I guess, they're playing it in just a base sort of green-red deck. You could call it synergistic, but at the end of the day, this card is really just, trying to undermine a trend in the entire format. Whereas, Worship is just it's another card that, again, certain strategies enables us to actually play Magic. So hopefully that makes sense. And I should also throw in there that, and this is the point of view I think that could potentially be perceived as condescending or insulting, but I don't mean it in that way at all. But I don't think it's necessarily the right way to look at certain cards as liking a certain playstyle or not. I think the most productive way of looking at certain cards is it going to help you win more or not? And now I understand totally that Magic is about fun and about doing what you like to do. But if what you like to do is play Soulherder, then in my experience, Worship is a really, really good card to have in the deck. It helps us win more, And maybe you say, well, I don't like winning that way. That's kind of a cheesy way to win. Well, maybe this card shouldn't be in the format. Fine. Maybe Teferi shouldn't be in the format. Maybe Uro shouldn't be in the format. There's a lot of people with objections to a lot of different types of cards. And it's totally your prerogative to play the cards that you like. But I consider myself enough of a spike to play the cards that I think are best in the deck that I'm playing. So I wouldn't be drawn to like a free win, like red deck with Simian Spirit Guides and Blood Moons. That just seems stupid to me. It's not very fun. In the same way, I'm not drawn to like playing 3 Tron lands and just playing Karn on turn 3. But in this deck with all these tiny little weenie creatures, Worship is an amazing card. It helps us win more. So that's why I play it. Okie dokie. So with that being said, I'm going to start a league, but guys, that was a long replay. I don't think I'm going to get through a whole league. And Kale, I definitely appreciate the positivity. I'm glad that you enjoy the replay streams. And actually, I could take a little survey now before I jump into a game. I played another really interesting match a couple days ago against 8-Whack. If you guys are interested in looking at that replay and sort of giving me your feedback on potential lines to take, I'd be happy to just go through that replay and just not play live tonight. Totally fine. I could play live on Thursday. So yeah, if you guys have an opinion, if you want to see me play a league match, if you want to see me do the other replay, let me know now, and I'll just do whatever you guys want me to do. Freedy, if you're talking about Aspiring Spike and his Red Splash, I don't know if he's done something more recently, but he played his Red Splash on the day that Urian was legal on Magic Online. I'm talking about Aspiring Spike and running Avalanche Riders. He had never played the deck before, I think, but he had a brew ready to go the day that Urian was released on Magic Online. And I don't think it was the very first league, but the second league, he went 5-0 with it, and he got published. And there was some Twitter, some tweets about it. People were getting excited that maybe Urian with a Red Splash with Soulherder was the real deal. And I'm gonna take a sip here. So Freedy's saying with Cryptics, I'm not super familiar with that build. I did see that somebody 5-0'd with a list that had very few creatures, but like a lot of cryptic commands and remans and other more controlling spells. I think it looks interesting. I think one of my comments in the Discord about that build, if it's similar to what I saw, was that maybe Shark Typhoon would be pretty good in that kind of a build, because the Soulherder plan is getting kind of dorks down on the battlefield early and drawing cards. Shark Typhoon does that. If you make a 1/1 flying shark, draw a card, get you a little bit further in the game, and then Shark Typhoon, potentially a really nice win condition with Eternal Witness much later in the game after you've locked things down with cryptic command, stuff like that. So somebody responded on Discord that Shark Typhoon doesn't seem like it would be very good since all of our spells are like 1 mana, but in this controlling build, there were all of these Archmage's Charms, Cryptic Command, and it shouldn't be overlooked that with Shark Typhoon on the battlefield, every Ephemerate and Rebound is generating 2 flying sharks. So that's pretty great value. Like, Ephemerate is going to draw 2 cards off of like a Coiling Oracle, and then also make 2 1/1 flyers. I mean, that's pretty sick. So just a thought I had about that build. Let me get rid of this this bot. Ban user. It was just a thought as a singleton. It seemed pretty potentially strong in a much more controlling build. Obviously, if you guys have played against it, you know that it's a pretty powerful win condition once you get a lot of mana down and you've stabilized. You're talking about Muldrifter, I guess. So anyhow, let's go ahead and play a league match, since that seems to be the consensus. Nice to see that M. Hayashi is sort of expanding his lead up here at the top of the table. I'm going to fill up my water while we're waiting here. So Muldrifter is amazing with Ephemerate, and I'd recommend anybody new to the deck their first build should have at least 1 Muldrifter in it to sort of get used to the way that that Ephemerate works with stuff like God, I'm so tired. What is that mechanic that Shriekmaw has? Evoke. However, if you're running a super optimized build, this is a slow hand, but lands and Uro, I don't think I want to mulligan this, so I'm going to keep this and maybe get run over. I guess we'll see how it goes. This is a borderline hand for sure. If this is Heliod Company, then Skyclave Apparition is amazing. All right, well, more 3-drops. Not optimal. Not optimal. The best thing here is just to draw a snake, but only 8 of those in the deck. Okay, opponent apparently just gifting me a lot of time here. I mean, what could this be? Like old school Titan Shift? Not Titan Shift? Yeah, Titan Shift. This is a little bit annoying here. Oh, you know what? If this is a Blood Moon deck, I'm already like on the path to destruction here. Okay, it is, and I was not fetching correctly, so I will immediately correct my path. Okay, so Magus. Yeah, it's a bit of a punt, but I do get to get an island here. That's my bad, guys. I could have potentially seen that coming. Maybe, yeah, I mean, I do want to be able to play Uro. But maybe white mana is really important. Time Warp, I mean, we're going to have to deal with this Magus at some point. And, God, I don't know, guys. Like, these are the worst games. Like, but now I know what I'm playing against. And if I get cheesed, then I can potentially always bring it back in games 2 and 3. It is an excellent matchup. And as long as, if I had gotten white there, this would be a totally different matchup instead of getting a shock. So what this game is going to come down to now is, do I draw basics or don't I draw basics? And currently, there's some very, very, very uncastable cards in my hand. But if I draw the other basic island off the top, all right, yeah, this is not starting very well. I might just have to scoop pretty soon. Opponent has a bad hand, but I just dug myself into this stupid hole. Like, yeah, I mean, it's, look, we've got like a couple minutes. It's not. I'll take one more turn. And we're just F6ing, so we're not really wasting any time here. All right. I think that just does it. Jesus, that was explosive. Am I going? Yeah, I think that does it. That's exactly. No, is it 12 or is it Exacxes? 7 plus 6? No, it's Exacxes. That was pretty explosive. On the other hand, we didn't actually cast anything. All right, so against these guys, we just saw this replay. That's funny. So bring in all of this stuff, and believe I remember, because it's fresh in my mind, what I took out. I took out a little bit of the graveyard stuff. And what else did I take? Oh, I took out the 2 Teferis, I think. Or no, that's a way that we can bounce Blood Moon. I kind of like that. But what did I take out? Maybe the cord. Maybe the cord isn't great. Yeah, but then I went and just messed it up. I mean, maybe you can't blame me for fetching, like I usually do. But seeing green red, I should have had my. Should have been paying more attention. Oh, I took the Soulherders out because they die to like everything. And so this would be the build that I ran exactly on that replay. So I'm going to look for basics very aggressively. I leave Time Warp in because it's its own win condition, and as you saw in that situation, if I drew an island, it actually gives me some chance to cast a spell and draw another basic forest or something. But I think Time Warp is okay in the matchup. Now, since I didn't see any spells, hard to say if they know what I'm on. Maybe they just like Google my name and they can see that I'm on Soulherder. But it's kind of ridiculous that like as soon as I saw that second like green source and thought about, okay, it's Magus of the Moon, like I was just screwed. I could have been set with my mana. Okay, this is excellent. So we're gonna keep this. We're gonna play the forest first. We are on the play, and we can definitely crack this fetch. Opponent thinking about whether they want to keep or mulligan. I've definitely played against this opponent plenty of times. Turn 2 Witness getting back a land actually seems like a wonderful play. Opponent's keeping their 7. Okay, Utopia Sprawl. Another Purge is nice. Do you think I'm getting... Now, this is a little bit tricky here. I think actually it's probably better just to play the Coatl and leave up Ephemerate. Or, leave up Coatl and Ephemerate. If they blow up a land, we won't be able to... Like, if they have turn 2 Pillage, then the correct play is to play Eternal Witness and get back the land. I think I like just drawing cards with Ice Fang here, though. So I'm going to pass the turn. See what the opponent is working with on turn 2. See that Birds of Paradise in the middle? Okay, well, they've got a 3-mana play. I never doubt. Okay, so they've got the Blood Moon. We're prepared. We can at least put up some kind of fight here. I mean, we can just purge it if we feel like it, but we don't need to do that just yet. All right, so we're going to draw tons and tons of cards. Okay. Well, we've got all the pieces for the Time Warp combo. Maybe just bouncing the Blood Moon is fine. If I want, I can just purge it and play a snake. Maybe purging and playing a snake is the best way to go. That actually gives me a chance to ramp and then start going for like Time Warp pretty quickly. Well, Teferi bouncing draws a card, but it doesn't use my mana very efficiently. I do like getting Teferi out. Teferi's awesome. Now I can give this thing Death Touch if I purge and get a basic. But in order to crack this, I have to go white, blue, and then go get, or rather white, green, and go get green with this so I can cast the snake. But then I'm left without a white basic. How does Teferi Bounce shut off Bloodbraid? Oh, it does. That's true. I like that idea very much. So thank you for pointing that out. I forgot that Cascade cares about that. Okay, and now I can go and get that basic, and all right, seems pretty good. Next turn we can cast Time Warp. Yeah, thanks very much for reminding me about Cascade. Let's see if the opponent knows about it. Okay, Blood Moon, and we will go get a basic island. And this is much closer to how the matchup would usually feel. Opponent pausing on my upkeep. So I'm just going to play Time Warp here, untap, and play Eternal Witness, getting back Ephemerate. Now, this is actually a good situation with Time Warp because I get double activations out of Teferi, so pretty nice. I will get in my attack. Okay, turn number 2. We'll tick up Teferi. And now we will play Eternal Witness, get back Ephemerate. I do need one more mana source to actually combo off. Maybe I'm just going to leave back my Death Touch dude, play a little bit of defense in case they have... Now, if they have the Hasty Dragon, Glorybringer, I can always Ephemerate and then block. But I don't really... I want to use Ephemerate on Eternal Witness, so I'll just pass the turn. Contra, you can always check the replay. Opponent just scooped, so If they were dominant in game 1, it was because of the misplay on my part. Domination in game 2 is just because our deck does pretty well against them if we actually know what we're playing against. No, the line here, I mean, holding up Purge for sure. The only question was whether we want to attack or not attack in this spot. And I chose not to attack because if they attack to Fairy with like a Glorybringer, I don't want to have to use Ephemerate on the Coatl. I would just block with the Coatl and then Ephemerate Eternal Witness to get back Time Warp. Excuse me. Props to Freedy there, though, reminding me that Teferi turns off Cascade, which is massive and very important that we all sort of learn and remember these important details for our matches. All right, so let's jump back in for game 3. So we're looking for basics or fetches that can get us basics. Venser could be an option, but Venser costs double blue, which sometimes is a little hard if they do get a Blood Moon down. Blade Splicer versus Venser is a little bit borderline, I think. Marginal. The fastest 2 games I've ever played against Ponza. Opponent might have gone to the bathroom or something. Okay, this is quite nice, and the opponent's mulliganing, so we're going to keep. We're going to get green. We're going to play Hierarch. We're going to play Uro. It's another basic green. We'd love to get basic blue at some point. Yeah, that is a good play sometimes, for sure. Okay, we're getting stomped. You know, that happens. Second Uro. Interesting. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky because we'd love to crack this and get another basic forest so that we have access to Eternal Witness. We can recycle Path. The problem is, I need to cast my Snake now. If they untap and cast Blood Moon, now we're stuck without a blue source, and then we also can't crack this to get another green. So how do you guys feel about land sequencing here? Do I kind of have to play the Hallowed Fountain and play the Coatl? I mean, Ice Fang is huge because it's a creature, it draws me a card, it uses my mana, whereas the other way, it's extremely passive. I'm sorry, what is the yes with the exclamation point? All right, so we're going for Ice Fang here. So we'll play the Hallowed Fountain and hope that they don't play Blood Moon, because if they do play Blood Moon, it's a bit of a blowout. But we also need double white at some point for So the alternative here is, all right, fair enough. Let's go. We'll pass a turn. Blood Moon is, in some spots, it can be a blowout. Like, we're overextending slightly here by playing this Hallowed Fountain, but it's obviously justifiable. The opponent's on a mulligan to 6. They have their third land, and we're hoping and praying. Okay, they just play the Bone Crusher Giant, so we are good to go, ladies and gentlemen. I would have certainly gone with the Hallowed Fountain, but I can't say that I've been in a situation where it was so close between the fetch versus the shock. So now we certainly want to shock, fetch, and then we'll get to play another land, which will leave up Path, but at the same time, we'd probably like to purge. So this land here, as I was saying, is going to get basic green. Getting closer to turning on Death Touch. Now, I could just play another Coatl and turn on Death Touch. But I like the life gain. I like the ramp. There's that Path to Exile. Sorry, there's that Eternal Witness I was talking about. And now we have now we do have Death Touch with this Plains on the battlefield. So I would much rather just trade the Ice Fang for the Bone Crusher rather than spending a path, because remember, they have stuff like Scavenging Ooze that Celestial Purge just can't answer. Like, super duper crazy happy to trade this. There you go. It also feeds the Uro, which is nice. Now, Magus, they are short on lands right now, but I do want that blue mana, so I think, unfortunately... Now, they don't have green mana. This is an interesting situation. I think I need to path the Magus, unfortunately. We've got so many resources to work with that I think just leaving our blue mana up lets us cast spells next turn, gets us closer to escaping Uro. Yeah, I'm on board. We have, on the upside here, I have plenty of time to just, like, talk about all of my decisions. So now it's time to escape Uro. We do not want to give him a chance to draw into... and that's also our basic island, which is massive. We don't want to give them a chance to draw into, like, Scavenging Ooze and just eat the Uro. So we want... oh, the opponent's just ending. So we got there. Awesome. So after losing game 1 on, like, turn 2, you know, we come back and do our thing. Top deck's not looking so hot, but we already had more than enough. Okay, now I'm going to say that this opponent has, like, a handful of trophies. Like, I don't know, but I've seen them around a lot before, and I'm pretty sure they're a good player. 8 trophies, more than a handful, so getting there against the good players. Gotta love it. Give me a second, guys. I'll be right back. Freedy, thanks very much for joining me. I definitely appreciate it, and all the support, all the comments. So you know what, guys? I was just thinking that's about the 2-hour mark in the stream, and I might just end it there. It's a really nice symmetrical stream. We had the extremely in-depth replay, analytical replay of a long Ponza match. Then we got paired against Ponza right away, put the theory into practice, and pretty soundly defeated them in 3 games. So I think I'll just close the league for the time being, and just sort of wrap it up with a quick conversation about the deck, where it stands, how I feel about all the various aspects of it. So if you guys are just here for gameplay, feel free to head out now, because I'm not going to play any more matches. I will say before you head out, though, if you're not following the channel and you like what you see, please give me a follow. It definitely helps the channel keep growing. If you really like Soulherder and what I'm doing here, then please consider subscribing. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to me for free. You might want to Google that to see how you link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Very easy, and it's a huge help to me. It gives me a little bit of money each month. And actually, speaking of money, I got an unexpected email from Twitch like a few days ago saying that they had deposited like $100 in my bank account, which was awesome to see. You guys, unless you stream, you probably don't know the ins and outs of how Twitch pays their streamers. But basically, you don't get anything until you have $100, and then they send it out at the end of the month if you have $100 or more. So I've been streaming over a year at this point, and didn't see any money from them at all. But now, from all of you faithful subscribers, followers, over the past year, I managed to get to that $100 point and get some money. So hopefully in the future, those $100 checks or deposits will come a little bit more frequently than once a year. But that all depends on the support from you guys. There are ways to cheer when you're here. Like you can give me bits. You can do donations. There should be a link to my PayPal down at the bottom. That's actually the most direct way you guys can help me out. If you want to, if you like the 2 hours that I just spent talking about Soulherder, you can send me $1 on PayPal or $2. That's means a lot to me. Anyhow, let's talk about the deck for a second. If you guys are interested in playing Soulherder, I think where I am right now is extremely tight. I showed at the beginning of the stream when I was in the replay, I'm over 1800 right now, and after that win against that guy with 8 trophies, Magic only refreshes like when you restart it, so I'm probably closer to 1810 now. If you guys don't know about ratings, like I was saying earlier, I'm the way that with my play schedule and the decks that I play, maintaining over 1800 only happens like maybe a couple times a year. Definitely feels good. I was showing earlier out of the last 12 games now, I've only lost 1. So I'm 11-1 over the last 12 matches, and actually 10 in a row out of the last 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Unfortunately, most of those were just in queue matches, not in leagues. So now that I'm a little bit more confident with this particular build that I was just throwing together recently, I'll start jumping back in leagues even when I'm not streaming. But just want to tell you guys that I'm feeling really good with the deck. The 4 paths have been feeling excellent. My previous build was on 3 with the 4th one in the sideboard. Path is just really, really, really good. One of the best spells in the format. And even against control decks these days, it's quite excellent. Being able to permanently deal with Uro, obviously very important. And the control decks these days are all playing Uro, so can't really go wrong with 4 paths in the main. I've got 3 forces instead of 4. That's a close call, but it's one of those things where you play the best cards first, and then the slots, they start filling up, and then you have to sort of make judgment calls about which cards should be 4s and which cards should be 3s. I played 3 in the main. I've got the last one in the sideboard. This one is so close that it's such an amazing card. Obviously, one of the most powerful counter spells in the format. That I didn't really want 4 in the main deck against every matchup. If you get paired against humans, it feels terrible if you draw a couple of forces of negation. So the last one is over here in the sideboard. Beyond that, 2 Skyclaves, I feel like it's just about right, kind of the sweet spot. If you start running 3 and 4, you're going to get paired against Tron, and you're going to have nothing to blow up with Sky App. It definitely has awkward moments, so I think 2 is very nice. I was mentioning earlier, Blade Splicer actually replaced the Siege Rhino that I was playing when I switched back from Vial to non-Vial with Dorks. I wanted to get back to Siege Rhino because I love that card. But it was the only black card, and you do have to modify the mana base to provide black, and you also kind of have to play Birds of Paradise, whether you have to play 4 or some other number, alongside Hierarchs. Noble Hierarch is such an upgrade over Birds, and having semi-smooth mana in a 3-color deck, I think it's just so much more important than Siege Rhino, and so I decided to sort of revisit Blade Splicer, which is a card that I've had some success with in the past. It's really, really good with dorks early in the game. Play a dork, get out Blade Splicer, 3/3 first striker on turn 2. I've won. I've had Burn like scoop on turn 2 to me because like I'll play Blade Splicer, they'll try to like Searing Blaze the Blade Splicer, and I forget how it went down exactly. It was an early turn. Like maybe they tried to do it on my turn, and I untapped and ephemerated the Blade Splicer. Suddenly I had 2/3/3s against their Goblin Guide, and like getting those 3/3s down early is very strong. And Hierarch gives us the possibility of getting those creatures out on turn 2. The Time Warp has felt great. I've actually had the Infinite Combo come together against Bogles recently. It's pretty unexpected since that's a very fast deck. But it can come together if you get your ramp between Noble Hierarch and Coiling Oracle, maybe Uro. So all the cards feel great. There's no loose ends as far as I've seen. It's possible I could trim this cord, but it's just a card that provides so much value. It's really great late in the game, sort of an unstoppable value engine with Eternal Witness. But if I were to replace one card in the main, it would probably be the Chord of Calling at this point. Sideboard feels extremely tight. I took out the Gaia's Blessing. They got paired against Mill, and I missed it, so I brought it back in. I just love like basically having 100% against Mill just by having one sideboard card in here. So gonna stick with the Gaia's Blessing for a while. 4 Ceremonies Rejection just helps us massively against all the different versions of Tron. And all the other spells are sort of self-explanatory, I think. So once again, thanks so much, guys, for joining me. I'll be back on Thursday with more Soulherder. It'll actually be in the afternoon, around noon or 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So have a great night, and I'll see you on Thursday.